Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Korean Atlanta Mentorship. And in this video, I want to talk about my experiences teaching velocity banking to people who've never heard of the concept or who are hearing about it for the first time. And so what's been happening is that some Korean people that I've been teaching it to have asked me to come in and teach it to other Korean people that they know, and they're shocked, right? And they're shocked. And this is actually what usually happens, right? Uh, I could just tell from certain things that they say that they're broke. And one of the things that I kind of automatically like interpret, like, you had cash flow issues, is when you bought a property in 2011, you had to sell it. You know what I mean? Like, you couldn't keep it for 30 years. You had to sell it, but you still live in the Atlanta area. And that's actually what happened to me when I was explaining this to a nurse. She randomly asked me one day out of the blue. I know her and her family, and she was like, "Hey, can you teach me real estate investing?" Which is kind of weird because she actually owned properties far longer than I've had mine. Right? I've only had mine since 2021. She's had hers since at least 2009, and then she had to sell like the one with the ton of equity because she had cash flow issues. Now I'm going to tell you what happened when I showed her the. I'll tell you what happened when I showed her the velocity banking strategy for the first time, okay? Which is she just showed me a poker face. So what I mean by a poker face is that you're basically showing no emotion on the surface, but I know you're thinking 10 million things, right? I know you're thinking 10 million things. In fact, I asked ChatGPT about this, like, what's up with these people when every time I present velocity banking and they have this emotional poker face, but it seems like they're probably thinking a million things in their head, right? ChatGPT's got, all these possible explanations, and I said, you know what? I think it's happening because they're shocked that they could have paid off debt quickly in the past, right? And I really like ChatGPT's response. Let's go ahead and listen to it.
That makes sense. When people realize they could have paid off debt faster using a method like velocity banking, it can cause a mix of surprise and maybe even frustration at missed opportunities. The poker face could be their way of masking that shock or mentally reprocessing their past financial decisions. Have you noticed any changes in their reactions once they've had time to digest the information?
I haven't really noticed any changes, but I noticed that even if you do have the money and the credit, 90% of the hurdle is all mental, right? Like when I learned velocity banking in 2017, even though I was making 20 grand a year, I was like, one day I'm going to be able to do this because I actually wanted the mental justification so that I could feel good about making a $2,000 purchase on Renata's educational program, even though I was making like 20 grand a year. That $2,000 was a lot to me, right? And so when I showed this to other people, people who have a lot more money than when I had in 2017, I think they're shocked because again they make a lot more money and they still haven't paid off their property, and I paid my mortgage off under 3 years, right? So it's, again, shocking. That's really like the word of the day. You know what I mean? Like, what are you going to think when I paid off my mortgage in 3 years and they had their property for 10 to 15 years? And every velocity banking simulation that we've done in this channel, we take about 3 to 4 years to pay off the non mortgage debt. And then the mortgage takes about 3 to 4 years. So if they've been living, and having a career for 20 to 30 years and been raising their kids, what are you going to think? It is shocking because now it feels like, man, I didn't have to struggle all that time and sell off my property in the nice area just so I can manage my cash flow. Now, here's what I do, okay, to be able to teach velocity banking to people who have no interest in finance and math, right? Because the way that we connect with other people is through stories and questions, okay? And I know that a lot of you are enamored with like the financial spreadsheets and all that, but to me, those financial spreadsheets are kind of like the soundtrack to a movie. It's not the main star of the movie, but it greatly enhances it, right? Whereas us connecting with our audience and just asking questions and putting in the driver's seat is going to make them understand the concept. And so I'm going to tell you what I mean by that. So here's what I do every time I present velocity banking to a new audience, and I actually do the same thing in this YouTube channel here, right? Because I don't know who's new and who's a recurrent viewer, right? Who's been watching these videos for a long time. But the thing is that yes, the math is important. This is all important. But again, it's like the soundtrack of a movie, okay? So what I do is, if you want to learn how I do this, like, explain velocity banking, it's always about asking questions and making sure that whoever you're talking to can actually imagine the pain that they feel and why they need an alternative to the current situation. So one of the things that I say, okay, so let me just go ahead and do this, is just say, hey, I know that right now you're struggling. Okay, I know that right now you might think more money is the answer, but let me ask you this. Let's say you made $9,321.45, and after the month you have $9,321.44 in expenses, so you only have 1 penny left over. 1 penny, okay? So my question is, if this is you, how would you feel, right? And you want them to give you an answer that makes it seem like that they need an alternative, okay? That challenges their assumptions. So if you made $9,321.45 and had $9,321.44 expenses, 1 penny left over, how do you feel? And I don't know a single person, okay? I don't know a single person that says, wow, I feel good or I feel confident. Now, if you've been watching these videos, of course, you're not worried like me, right? I'm not worried. I had $100,000 in credit card bills like 2 years ago, and I'm like, you're sleeping like a baby. Like, that's not a problem. Okay. Now the next question that you ask, again, this is just challenging societal norms and perceptions, which is, do you need to make more money? And that's a reasonable question. And the way that you gain the audience's trust is just agree with them. I totally agree that, yeah, that makes more sense. Yeah, who wouldn't say that, right? Do you need to make more money? And you take a look at this and you see that you have 1 penny left. How are you going to get out of this debt? Do you need to make more money? And everybody's going to say yes. And that's the answer that you want, because you want the person that you're talking to, the audience, to be framed into this column so it could feel like, hey, if you just did what I'm teaching you to do, you might be able to do better, which is velocity banking. Okay? So, next question, right? Again, all the questions do is putting the audience in the driver's seat, right? You're not telling them velocity banking is better or this and that. And I think this is why I honestly don't like watching most velocity banking videos, because they're too descriptive. They're too, hey, this is, velocity banking is the best. That's not, no, no, no. That's not what I do. What I want to do is just put you in the driver's seat and say, hey, if you were in this situation, is there anything you can do? And I want you to say no, right? I need you to say that I don't feel good. I need to make more money. And if we had an emergency on day one, so let's go over that question. What happens when we have an emergency on day one? So what do I mean by that? So this is the part where we go over that, the line of credit, blah, blah, blah. If you don't know what a line of credit is, all it is a financial tool where you can borrow money, pay it back, and use it over and over again. So we'll just assume for this example that we have a $200,000 limit. Okay, and let me actually go ahead and erase this. Okay, so let's say we had a $200,000 limit, and so what we want the audience to understand at this point is, hey, just because you get a line of credit, because people say stupid stuff in this channel that, hey, if I just had a line of credit, I could do this, right? But what's going to happen when you give someone a line of credit and they're the situation and they have a financial emergency, like their car breaking down, right? So let's say that they did have their car breaking down, $3,000. Guess what happens here if you're not doing velocity banking, which is making your line of credit your main operating account? Well, you just get another negative $50 payment, right? Negative $50. Okay, and so now you kind of cemented in their head about how emergencies and just having credit is actually going to screw most people. I mean, if you go on Reddit and look about people struggling with HELOCs, I mean, you can find plenty of posts, right? And that's because that's the situation they're in, and they might even be in positive savings, 10, 20 grand, and feel like they're struggling, right? So here we go. Okay. Now here's the shocker, and here's the thing that I always love to see when presenting the concept, and I'm just saying, listen, we don't need to make more money. Or let's assume that we don't need to make more money and we have zero savings and we have, okay? And so this is going to be the thing that we're not taught by society, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to have something called cash flow, but we're going to increase this cash flow number by making our line of credit as our main operating account. So what happens when we move these 10 credit cards into the line of credit, which is $167,000? Again, we haven't eliminated debts, 167,000, but guess what happens when we move those 10 credit cards here, and then eventually they'll get the idea that, hey, there's no payment, and so this all goes to zero. All right. And I love it whenever I show anybody new to velocity banking seeing how we made a penny go to $5,345.84. Right? Are you shocked? You probably have been shocked if you've been watching the other previous videos. But think about this from a perspective of someone who's completely new. Why would they have that poker face? Right? Why would they, they're probably just thinking a million things about, how they could have done life better because they, fell into the trap of segregation of income. But, how do we go from a penny to $5,345, right? $5,345. And they're looking at this and it's like, I don't understand. And it's not that they don't understand. It's just that it's too shocking to understand that they were scammed, right? Because a lot of the financial system, a lot of banking, a lot of debt in general, right? It's not an actual product. It's not like an iPad. It's just shuffling paper. You know, banks have the tallest buildings in North America, in the downtowns. So because they want you to be here, but you could have been here, right? But it takes a while for them to process, and that's what's crazy. And they can't dispute it because it's not me showing them these numbers, it's Microsoft Excel. And they know that it's very hard for Excel to lie, especially if you're doing this on demand. If you do whiteboards, you can lie all day, every day, right? But when you do Excel, very hard to lie, okay? So now, this is why I show them. So next question here is, even if we had an emergency on day one, showing them the velocity banking concept, and again, I'm going to quickly kind of skip over the main step, which is the paycheck and line of credit expenses out. I just want to talk about today about what happens when you talk about velocity banking to somebody new, and instead of just going too detailed into the math and interest this blah blah blah, ask them questions, put them in the driver's seat. Ask them how they feel. How would you get out of this, right? What if we had an emergency? Do you hear other people talking about that when it comes to velocity banking? I really don't. People just write stuff on a whiteboard. I don't get it. You know what I'm saying? I don't get it. But whenever I see that and connect with a new audience, I'm always blown away by their expression. Now let me go back to the spreadsheet here. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this. And we always talk about the new balance, which is based on the previous balance, previous interest minus our cash flow. So 5345.84. Okay, and then and then we're going to take the average daily balance, right? The average daily balance multiplied by the interest rate. So this one's 0.085, and then divide by 12. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and copy and paste. Yes, we will. Copy and paste. Okay, and then now you see in 36 months it got paid off. Now here's the crazy thing. Now when we had that $2,000, $3,000 emergency, we were struggling in month one because now we got negative savings. Okay, remember that? So now guess what happens here? If we have a $2,000 emergency, right, we're going to add $2,000 plus 2000, and we scroll all the way down. Oh my goodness, guess what? The payoff's still 36 months, right? And when I presented this last time, it was actually last weekend, to new people whose first language is Korean, and folks, it doesn't matter what demographic, what country of origin you're from, what language you speak, broke people are everywhere. Broke people are everywhere, okay? but they were amazed. I was like, wait, I don't really get. Like they could clearly see that if I added an extra $2,000 and I had a $2,000 emergency, that it took the same payoff time, and they were like blown away. I'm like, right? And but the thing is that most people can't do this. It's not because they don't have the tools and resources. A lot of it is limiting beliefs. That's the conclusion I came to. And the reason, folks, it's crazy. And my voice just cracked right now because I'm just excited. The reason that I could do this is because when I made 20 grand a year, I was so delusional. I had to justify the purchase of my $2,000 educational package um, in 2017. And so I was like, I'm going to do this velocity banking thing. I talk about how I paid off in 3 years. It actually took me seven, right? I'd say I studied it for 3 to 4 years, and actually I paid it off in about 2 years and 9 months, but we'll just say seven. I studied it for 3 to 4 years, and then once I got the mortgage, then I took action, right? So you could say yes, it did take me 7 years to pay it off, but when I actually got the mortgage in 2021, I paid it off in under 3 years, right? So back to my point here. Okay, so if you're presenting velocity banking to a new group of people, this is what I want you to do. I want you to ask questions and make them feel that they need another solution, right? So when you tell them, hey, if you only had one penny left over, how would you feel, right? I've never had a person say, oh, wow, I feel pretty confident. But when I look at this, listen, I do this. Day one, I'm confident I'm going to pay the debt off, right? If I'm here with one penny left over, I'm just going to be in the struggle bus, right? And I did not need to make more money, so assumption has been challenged, right? What happens if we have emergency day one? Again, assumption challenge that we actually need some savings when we don't, and then another assumption challenge that somehow we can multiply our cash flow without making more money because everybody's like, we need to make more money, and then same thing here, we relate it to the emergency, right? So again, always ask questions. Put the audience in the driver's seat. Make them feel the pain. Challenge their assumption that they didn't that making more money is going to solve their problems. Most people cannot do that. And regardless of what culture, national origin, language that they see, they may not even speak English, but they need money, right? So they're going to want to understand this, right? Don't assume that people are that stupid. People are smart, but they make stupid choices because they don't know any better, right? Okay. So, yeah, this is Korean Atlanta mentorship. And yeah, I don't even know what to say. Every time I present velocity banking to a new audience and they never heard of it and they've never heard of this YouTube channel, I could just look at the shocked look at their face. Because I know they're thinking a million things of how quickly they could have paid off the debt. Even ChatGPT knows, right? I mean, ChatGPT is is a genius with the how human psychology works. They know ChatGPT knows you got a poker face because of the surprise and frustration at missed opportunities. You're masking your shock. You're mentally reprocessing of what could have been because you didn't know what you didn't know, right? And let me play it one more time again.
That makes sense. When people realize they could have paid off debt faster using a method like velocity banking, it can cause a mix of surprise and maybe even frustration at missed opportunities. The poker face could be their way of masking that shock or mentally reprocessing their past financial decisions. Have you noticed any changes in their reactions once they've had time to digest the information?
Yeah, I noticed the change. They call me to learn from me. They call me to learn from me. It's like, what's your phone number? I want to learn from you. It's crazy how that works, right? Because they know that I'm the only person who taught it to them. Everyone else, they're just kind of going day by day and acting. It's like the Matrix. It really is. I know it's the most cliche phrase ever, but it really is like the Matrix for most people, and they just live day to day without any sort of wake up call. But then when they see that, it's like holy balls! It's a wake up call, right? Okay, well that's it for today. This is Korean Atlanta mentorship. Um, Right, what time is it right now? 12:30 a.m. So I'll post this video right now, and I'll speak to you on the next, or see you on the next video.